I pressed my face against the car window as Marcus turned onto the gravel road. Pine trees closed around us like curtains. For weeks, I'd felt like wilted lettuce in the back of the refrigerator, forgotten, browning at the edges. This morning, I couldn't drag myself from bed. Work meant nothing. People meant less. But Marcus never pushed. He'd leave tea steaming on my nightstand, kiss my forehead, ask for nothing, until today. "We're going," he'd said, car keys already in his hand. "I've arranged everything. You just need to be." The wooden house appeared through the trees, smoke rising from its chimney. 3 cars sat in the driveway. My stomach fluttered. "Marcus," I touched his arm as he parked. "What is this?" He turned to me, gray eyes steady. "Trust me." Inside, warmth wrapped around us. A fire crackled. Pine scent mixed with something deeper. Leather, cedar, anticipation. 3 men stood when we entered, older, like us, distinguished. They nodded at Marcus like old friends. One approached me, tall, silver-haired, kind eyes. He didn't speak. Just reached out, brushed something from my shoulder. A pine needle, maybe. His fingers lingered against the wool of my sweater. I should have stepped back. Instead, I breathed deeper than I had in months. Marcus settled into an armchair across the room, a glass of red wine appearing in his hand. He watched me with those patient eyes that had loved me for 47 years. The man's hand moved to my hair, gentle as rainfall. "I'm Daniel," the silver-haired man said, his voice warm whiskey. "This is James and Connor." He gestured to the others, one with dark hair touched by gray, another with laugh lines around blue eyes. I found my voice. "Rachel." "We know." Daniel's smile reached his eyes. "Marcus has told us about you." My husband sipped his wine, saying nothing. The key card to our room sat on the side table beside him, plastic edges catching firelight. I wondered if we'd use it tonight, or if everything would change before then. James brought me tea in a ceramic mug. His fingers brushed mine as I took it. Warm, steady. "You look tired," he said simply. "I am." The admission surprised me. So tired. Connor moved to the couch, patted the cushion beside him. "Sit." I looked at Marcus. He nodded once. The couch welcomed me like an embrace. Connor's hand found my shoulder, kneading tension I'd carried for years. Daniel sat on my other side. James took the chair nearest us. "Tell us," Daniel said, "when did you last feel beautiful?" The question hit like cold water. "I don't remember." His thumb traced my cheek. "That's a shame." Connor's hands worked down my spine. Professional, healing, but something else too. James leaned forward, elbows on his knees, watching my face. "Better?" Connor asked. I closed my eyes. "Yes." When I opened them, Marcus was still watching, still holding his wine, still my husband. But something had shifted. The room felt charged, electric. These men weren't just being kind. They were waking something in me I'd thought was dead. Time moved like honey. Connor's hands found knots in my shoulders I didn't know existed. Daniel traced circles on my palm, reading lines like a map. James spoke in low tones about art, travel, the weight of years. "You're lovely," Daniel murmured against my ear. I should have protested, should have looked to Marcus, sought permission or boundaries. Instead, I melted into their attention like snow in sunlight. Connor's lips brushed my neck, soft, questioning. I didn't pull away. Across the room, Marcus set down his wine and pulled a receipt from his jacket pocket, confirmation of whatever arrangement he'd made. He folded it carefully, tucked it away. His eyes never left me. Is this what you want? Daniel's question was barely a whisper. I looked at my husband. 47 years of marriage, and he was offering me this gift, this awakening, this return to myself. Yes, I breathed. What followed happened in slow motion and lightning speed. Gentle hands, whispered encouragements, the rekindling of desires I'd buried under decades of routine. They worshipped me with patience, with reverence, with the kind of attention I'd forgotten I deserved. Marcus never moved from his chair, never looked away. His face showed no jealousy, no anger, only love, only pride at seeing me remember who I was beneath the exhaustion. The fire crackled, shadows danced on the walls, and I came alive again in ways that mattered, in ways that healed, in ways that made me whole. When it was over, I lay wrapped in the throw blanket, breathing hard, skin flushed with life. Marcus finally stood, crossed to me, gathered me in his arms. I wanted you to remember, he whispered into my hair. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the scent of coffee drifting from downstairs. My body felt different, awakened, alive in ways I'd forgotten were possible. Marcus sat in the chair by the window, already dressed, watching me with gentle eyes. "Good morning, beautiful." The word didn't feel foreign anymore. I stretched under the covers, feeling muscles I'd neglected, remembering touches that had brought me back to myself. "They're gone," he said softly. "Left early. But they wanted me to give you this." He handed me a note written in Daniel's careful script. "Thank you for letting us see you shine. You are radiant." I pressed the paper to my chest. "Marcus, what we did last night was perfect." He moved to the bed, sat on the edge. "You were perfect. I betrayed you. In front of you." His hand found mine. "You came back to life. That's not betrayal. That's resurrection." I studied his face, searching for hidden pain, for cracks in his composure. Found only love. But why? After all these years, why this? He was quiet for a long moment. "Because I was losing you. Not to another man. Not to anything I could fight. I was losing you to emptiness. To that gray place where you'd been living." Tears came then, hot and cleansing. I didn't know how to find my way back. "I know." He wiped my cheeks with his thumbs. So I found another way. Downstairs, we ate breakfast, in comfortable silence. The house felt different in daylight, still warm, still welcoming, but ordinary now. Just a rental in the woods, not the magical space where I'd been reborn. "What happens now?" I asked. Marcus smiled, that patient smile that had sustained us through decades. "Now we go home, and we figure out what comes next." We packed slowly, neither of us eager to leave. I folded the throw blanket carefully, remembering how it had covered me afterward, how safe I'd felt wrapped in wool and wonder. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked, watching Marcus zip his suitcase. "Months." He straightened, met my eyes. "Since the morning you couldn't get out of bed? Since you started looking at me like I was a stranger?" The honesty cut deep. "I never meant. I know. Depression isn't a choice. But watching the woman I loved disappear, piece by piece, that was killing me too." He moved to the window where his wine glass from last night still sat on the sill, empty now, catching morning light. I researched, read articles, talked to a therapist. "You talked to someone about this?" "About you, about us, about unconventional solutions to conventional problems." He turned back to me. She said sometimes we need permission to want things again, permission to feel beautiful, desired, alive. I sat on the bed, overwhelmed. So you hired 3 men to sleep with your wife. I hired 3 gentlemen to remind my wife she's extraordinary. His voice was firm, certain, and it worked. He was right. I felt like myself again, not the self I'd been at 20, but the self I was meant to be at 71. Confident, sensual, worthy of attention and care. The therapist, I said. What else did she say? Marcus smiled, that secret smile I'd fallen in love with decades ago. She said healing isn't always conventional. Sometimes love means thinking outside traditional boundaries. And you're okay with what happened? He crossed to me, cupped my face in his hands. Rachel, watching you come alive again was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I'm more than okay. I'm grateful. We drove home through autumn countryside, the silence comfortable now, charged with possibility rather than emptiness. I felt the key card in my purse. Marcus had let me keep it as a reminder, though checkout had been that morning. The therapist, I said as we passed a farm stand. Are you still seeing her? We both are, starting next week. I looked at him, surprised. Both? This isn't something I did to you, Rachel. It's something we're doing together, exploring what we need, what we want, what makes us both happy. The word both hung in the air, full of implication. You want to do this again. Only if you do. He glanced at me, then back at the road. Only if it brings you joy. I thought about Daniel's hands, Connor's gentle strength, James's quiet wisdom, about Marcus watching with love instead of jealousy, pride instead of possession. What would that look like? I asked. However we want it to look. Same arrangement, different people. Couples instead of singles. The therapist says there are communities, support groups, ways to explore safely. My pulse quickened. Communities. People like us. Couples who found unconventional ways to love each other, to keep marriages alive and growing instead of just surviving. We pulled into our driveway, our ordinary suburban home looking somehow different. Not smaller, but fuller of possibility. Inside, Marcus made tea while I sorted mail. Among the bills and catalogs, I found a card with no return address. Inside, Daniel's handwriting again. Should you ever want to explore further, we're here. With respect and admiration, I showed Marcus. He smiled. They liked you. I liked them too. The admission felt natural, honest. I liked feeling wanted, desired, beautiful. You are all those things with or without them. But with them I remember it. He set down his mug, moved to where I stood. Then we'll remember together, as often as you need. I melted into his embrace. This man who'd loved me enough to share me, who'd found a way to save our marriage by expanding it rather than restricting it. Next time, I whispered against his chest. Next time, he agreed. 3 weeks later, I found the receipt in Marcus's jacket pocket while doing laundry. Not snooping, just checking for forgotten tissues before the wash cycle. The paper was cream-colored, expensive. Discretion assured printed at the top, followed by details I hadn't known existed. Professional services, screening, references. A world I'd never imagined, conducted with the care and attention of any other business transaction. The cost made me blink. This hadn't been a whim or an impulse. Marcus had invested in my healing the way others might invest in surgery or therapy. When he came home from work, I was sitting at the kitchen table, receipt between us. You found it, he said, hanging up his coat. I did. This was expensive. He sat across from me, worth every penny. Marcus, I smoothed the paper with my fingers. This says ongoing services available. It does. Have you called them? I wanted to talk to you first, see how you were feeling. I considered this. 3 weeks of sleeping better, eating with appetite, looking forward to things again. 3 weeks of feeling like myself. The therapist appointment is tomorrow, I said. It is. I want to discuss this with her, together. Of course. I folded the receipt, slipped it into my purse next to the key card I still carried. Talismans of transformation, reminders of possibility. I love you, I said, for all of this. For seeing what I needed before I did. Marcus reached across the table, took my hand. I love you too, all of you, even the parts that need unconventional care. Outside, autumn was settling into winter, but inside our kitchen, spring had arrived early. We were growing again together in directions we'd never imagined. The receipt crinkled in my purse. The key card caught kitchen light, and I smiled, thinking of next time.